He's a billionaire CEO with control issues. She's a free-spirited loudmouth with no filter. When a wedding weekend gone wrong leaves them as the only two single guests, and only one room left at the resort, what starts as an inconvenient sleeping arrangement turns into a battle of wills, a comedy of disasters, and maybe the love story neither of them saw coming. Because sometimes, fate doesn't wait for an invitation. It just books the last room. The silver sedan rolled to a smooth stop outside the Willow Crest Resort, nestled in the rolling hills of the countryside. Jamal Carter stepped out, straightening his designer coat, his tailored suit perfectly crisp despite the long drive. The soft crunch of gravel beneath his Oxfords was the only sound he heard for a moment, until laughter and music drifted from the grand hall up ahead. He checked his watch. 4:17 p.m., exactly 13 minutes ahead of schedule. Just the way he liked it. A valet approached, asking for his keys, and Jamal handed them over with a polite nod. No smile. No small talk. He had agreed to attend this wedding, begrudgingly, for his old college friend Jason, who somehow thought it was acceptable to host a 3-day celebration in the middle of nowhere with mandatory overnight accommodations. Jamal didn't do weddings, or countryside, or surprises. As he approached the reception desk in the lobby, his phone buzzed with a reminder for his next board meeting, already blocked out for Monday morning. Just a few more days and he could go back to the real world. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carter," the receptionist greeted with a bright, trained smile. "Welcome to Willow Crest. You're here for the Whitmore-Sanders wedding." "That's correct. Jamal Carter. Reservation under my name." She tapped rapidly on the keyboard. Then her smile faltered. "Ah, yes. Well, it seems there's been a small error with the booking system. Due to a high volume of guests and a last-minute cancellation, we're down to our last available room." Jamal narrowed his eyes slightly. "I booked a deluxe king suite 3 weeks ago." "I understand, sir, and we deeply apologize. Your suite was mistakenly assigned to a couple who arrived earlier this morning. Since our check-in policy is first come, first served." Jamal held up a hand. "Let me guess, you're giving me whatever's left." She nodded sheepishly. "It's a standard room. Cozy but comfortable. And," she hesitated, "you'll be sharing it." He blinked. "Sharing? Yes. With another guest in the same situation. Don't worry. It's only for tonight, and we've arranged for a bottle of complimentary champagne." "That better be Dom Perignon," Jamal muttered, turning away before she could reply. Meanwhile, outside in the parking lot, Maya Brooks was wrestling with a duffel bag that refused to zip. One knee on the ground, her messy bun coming undone, and a half-eaten bag of peanut M&Ms clenched between her teeth, she looked every bit like a woman who'd packed in a rush and lost the battle. "Why do I even own this much stuff?" she mumbled to herself. "It's a weekend. 2 days. Not Everest." Maya wasn't late, but she definitely wasn't early. Fashionably chaotic as usual. She brushed her hands together, grabbed her bag, and strode into the lobby like she owned the place. "Hi, Maya Brooks. I'm here for the Whitmore-Sanders wedding. Also, I may or may not have listed myself as +1 to avoid the pressure of saying I'm coming alone. Don't judge me." The receptionist blinked. "All right. Yes. Of course." Maya leaned in with a conspiratorial whisper. "Also, do you guys have snacks? Like real snacks. Not fancy nut mix that costs $17. Something that crunches. I skipped lunch." The receptionist let out a nervous chuckle, already typing her name. Then came the same pause. The same faltering smile. "Oh no," Maya said, crossing her arms. "That's the face of bad news. You didn't lose my reservation, did you?" "Not exactly. It's just that, well, we have one room left and you'll be sharing it." Maya blinked. "Oh, sharing? With a stranger?" "Yes, just for tonight. Tomorrow we'll have your own room ready." Maya tapped her chin. As long as they don't snore or smell like a gym sock, I can handle it." She accepted the room key and spun around, only to walk straight into Jamal Carter. Their eyes locked. She blinked. He frowned. Recognition sparked, not because they'd met before, but because they were exact opposites. Maya's energy practically bounced, her smile wide and open. Jamal's expression was unreadable, cool, calculating. You, they both said at the same time. Jamal arched a brow. You're my roommate? Oh no, you're my roommate? Maya gasped dramatically. This is like a rom-com, only I'm the quirky sidekick, and you're clearly the grumpy rich guy who hates fun. Jamal gave her a once-over. Accurate. She chuckled, unbothered. Well, Mr. Armani suit no soul, I guess we're bunking together. He ran a hand down his face. This is going to be a long night. Maya winked. Good thing I packed snacks. And with that, the two mismatched strangers, a millionaire CEO with no patience for chaos and a whirlwind woman who was chaos incarnate, headed up to room 314. Neither of them knew it yet, but what began as an accidental inconvenience was about to become the best mistake of their lives. Room 314 was small. Not tiny, but small enough that the two suitcases, Jamal's structured leather duffel and Maya's overstuffed polka dot roller bag, already looked like they were fighting for territory near the foot of the bed. Yes, bed. Singular. A queen-sized bed sat square in the center of the room, neatly made with crisp white linens and a decorative gold throw pillow that neither of them would touch. There was a single armchair, a small writing desk, and a modest bathroom tucked behind a sliding wooden door. The silence between them stretched as they both stood in the doorway, luggage in hand, processing the sleeping arrangement. No pull-out couch? Jamal asked flatly, stepping inside and scanning the room like it offended him personally. Nope. Just us and Queen Elizabeth here, Maya quipped, bouncing her hand on the mattress. Nice bounce. Firm support. Romantic lighting. All that's missing is champagne and a fire hazard of rose petals. Jamal didn't smile. You take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor. Maya tilted her head. Wow, chivalry is alive. But no, I'm not letting you sleep on the floor. You'll wake up with spinal trauma, and I'll get blamed for killing a CEO. I have a travel pillow and discipline. I'll manage. I talk in my sleep and snore when I'm stressed. He looked at her, deadpan. Good to know. Also, she added, I do this thing where I kick off the covers and burrito myself like a human cinnamon roll. The bed might be unsafe for civilians. Jamal rolled his eyes. Then we'll build a barrier. Like a pillow wall? She asked, amused. Exactly. Wow. You've done this before. I've been trapped at enough conferences and last-minute events to learn survival tactics. Maya narrowed her eyes playfully. Let me guess, you're the guy who leaves his name tag on after networking hours and checks emails during dinner. Jamal didn't deny it. Instead, he placed his bag precisely in the corner, took off his jacket, and folded it neatly over the chair. You're not far off. Maya flopped onto the bed like a teenager at a sleepover. Well, roomie, we might as well set some ground rules. I claim the left side of the bed. I also need 10 minutes of uninterrupted bathroom time to do my face mask and motivational dance routine. Motivational dance routine? Don't judge. It keeps the cortisol down. Jamal muttered something about cortisol levels as he opened his laptop and connected to the resort's Wi-Fi. Working? Maya asked, propping herself on one elbow. Yes. I'm reviewing quarterly reports and responding to investors. Of course you are. She sighed. Here I am, trying to emotionally prepare for seeing my ex-best friend marry my other ex-friend, who totally stole her from me, by the way, and you're worried about investor confidence. Jamal glanced up. You weren't invited as a plus one? Nope. Came solo. It's fine. I've been called worse than the backup guest. He didn't respond. Maya sat up, her voice turning light. Okay, how about we make a pact? No murder. No lawsuits. And if I happen to walk out of the bathroom wearing avocado on my face, you look away with dignity. Agreed. Jamal didn't look up from his screen. Maya groaned dramatically. This is going to be so fun. Hours later, the room had settled into a strange rhythm. Maya had claimed a corner of the bed and spread out her toiletries like a beauty influencer, while Jamal sat rigid in the desk chair, typing with focused precision. The only sound was the click of his keyboard and the occasional crinkle of snack wrappers as Maya munched on something crunchy. She flipped through the TV channels, then landed on a movie, a cheesy romantic comedy involving a fake wedding date and mistaken identity. "Oh, I love this one," she said, turning up the volume. Jamal looked up sharply. "Do you mind?" She blinked. "What?" "It's background noise. I'm working. And I'm unwinding." He sighed and rubbed his temples. "Can you wear headphones?" "I could," she said with a smirk. "But I forgot them, along with my charger, dignity, and a reason to be here." Jamal stared at her. Maya stared back. Neither backed down. Eventually, he stood and moved to the bed, resigning himself to the inevitable. He shut the laptop and grabbed one of the pillows to start constructing their border. "Look at us," Maya said. "Already building walls in the relationship. So symbolic." "Symbolism isn't required," Jamal muttered, dropping a pillow between them like a peace treaty. They changed into sleepwear. Him in a crisp black t-shirt and lounge pants, her in a mismatched pajama set featuring cartoon dinosaurs and planets. She slid under the covers without hesitation. Jamal stayed perfectly upright on his side, arms crossed, as if lying down was a compromise too far. "So," she said into the quiet, "what's it like being rich and emotionally unavailable?" He exhaled, eyes closed. "Exhausting." She chuckled. And somewhere between her humming the tune from the movie and him muttering about poor insulation in the walls, the tension softened just a little. It was still awkward, still uncomfortable, but also, oddly not as bad as either of them expected. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of room 314, catching dust motes dancing in the air. Maya was already awake, sprawled diagonally across the bed like a starfish. Jamal lay rigid on his side, eyes open, contemplating two things. He had slept next to a woman who managed to rotate 180 degrees during the night. He had survived. Barely. As if sensing him watching, Maya stirred, stretched like a cat, and let out a groggy yawn. "Did we survive the war zone?" "Physically," he said. "Emotionally? Remains to be seen." She blinked at him, then looked down and realized the pillow wall was now a flattened line of surrender. Her socked foot was half on his side. Oops. Friendly fire. He sat up and reached for his watch. "We have 30 minutes until brunch." "Ugh. Brunch. The land of forced smiles and passive-aggressive toasts," Maya muttered, dragging herself out of bed. "You realize we're going to get grouped together again, right? The only two lone wolves in a sea of soulmates." Jamal paused. "Then we'll have to endure it." Quietly. "You say that like I'm capable of silence," she said with a wink, disappearing into the bathroom. The sprawling garden terrace was buzzing with guests dressed in florals, linen suits, and pastel everything. Champagne flowed like water, and small talk hovered like a fog over the tables. Jamal and Maya arrived together, not by choice, but because they were both 10 minutes late and had to walk in during the toast. Heads turned. "Oh, look who finally showed up," someone whispered with a smirk. Jamal nodded at a few familiar faces. Maya grabbed a mimosa like a lifeline. Jason, the groom and Jamal's college friend, greeted them with a grin. "There they are, our surprise couple of the weekend." "We're not a couple," Jamal said instantly. Maya added, "just cohabiting in the name of survival. Think of it as a hostage situation, but with room service." Jason laughed. "Well, you two are stuck together for the scavenger hunt. Wedding tradition. Unattached guests must partner up. It's in the itinerary." Jamal's jaw tightened. Maya lit up. "Oh, you're joking. I live for games." "I don't," Jamal muttered. "I know," she said with a grin. "Which makes this even better." The clues were wrapped in little scrolls, passed out in fancy envelopes with wax seals. Each pair had to solve 10 riddles that led them across the resort, through gardens, the wine cellar, even a small maze. Their first clue read, "Where water sings and lovers meet. Find the bench beneath your feet." Jamal raised a brow. "They're rhyming now." "Come on, Sherlock," Maya said, grabbing his arm. "That's the fountain by the rose arbor. Let's move." He tried to walk at his usual brisk pace, but Maya insisted on stopping to greet everyone. And by greet, she meant chat, hug, laugh, and occasionally do a little dance. She was chaos in sneakers, but effective. She solved each riddle with alarming speed, dragging Jamal from one location to the next. Despite himself, he found it strangely enjoyable. At one point, they had to take a selfie with a statue of the wedding couple carved out of topiary. Maya insisted on making goofy faces. Jamal held a deadpan expression. When she saw the photo, she burst out laughing. "You look like someone threatened your hedge fund." "I'm not used to this," he said. "Silliness. Games. You know what your problem is? Please, enlighten me. You're afraid of being ridiculous. Of being human." He paused at that. He didn't have a comeback ready. Clue 7 led them into the resort's hedge maze. They entered with confidence, but 30 minutes later, Jamal finally admitted they were lost. "Okay," Maya said, leaning against a hedge. "Let's be honest. You thought you could navigate this like it's a stock portfolio. I had a system. Yeah. And now we're in a leafy prison with no signal." They sat down on a stone bench inside the maze. For a few minutes, neither spoke. Then Maya pulled out a mini chocolate bar from her purse and offered it. "You always carry candy?" he asked. "Emergency chocolate. It's science." He took it. They ate in silence, listening to birds overhead and laughter in the distance. The energy between them shifted. "So," Maya said softly, "what's your deal, really?" Beyond the whole stoic billionaire vibe. He looked at her, studying her features, the warm eyes, the open curiosity. It was disarming. "I built my company from nothing. Worked 3 jobs. Lived in my car once. Now people treat me like I'm either a genius or a robot. And neither feels quite right." Maya nodded. "Everyone's always trying to put people in boxes." He glanced at her. "What's your box?" "Too much. That's what I get. Too loud. Too talkative. Too honest. People like me in small doses. I'm starting to think doses aren't the problem. Just poor timing." She blinked. Was that a compliment? "I'm not sure. It felt dangerous." She grinned. "You're warming up to me, Mr. Carter." "I'm freezing." She laughed, then stood. "Come on. I think I see a way out." They didn't win the scavenger hunt. A yoga instructor couple beat them by 15 minutes. But by the time they returned, flushed and laughing, their dynamic had changed. Other guests whispered, exchanged glances. "Are they together? I thought they were just roommates." "They have chemistry." Neither of them heard it. Or maybe they did. Back in room 314 that night, Maya collapsed onto the bed, exhausted and happy. "You're not as unbearable as I thought," she said, looking over at him. Jamal sat down on the chair, watching her. "You're more unpredictable than I expected." "Thank you." That wasn't necessarily a compliment. Still taking it. And with that, they settled into the quiet hum of a strange new rhythm. Still strangers, still mismatched. But now, just a little bit closer. The night was unusually quiet. After dinner, after dancing, after the endless parade of small talk and congratulations and slightly too loud music, Maya stood barefoot on the balcony of room 314, wrapped in a plush hotel robe. The evening air was crisp, the stars soft and scattered across the velvet sky. She held a mug of hot chocolate, complete with tiny marshmallows she'd talked the kitchen staff into giving her, and stared out over the dark, sleepy hills. Behind her, the door slid open. Jamal stepped out, his silhouette backlit by the warm glow from inside. He'd changed into a fitted long-sleeve t-shirt and gray joggers. It was the most human she'd seen him look. "I thought you were asleep," he said quietly, joining her. "I thought you didn't do late nights." "I don't." She took a sip, then held the mug out toward him. "Want some?" He hesitated, then accepted. 1 sip. Then 2. "Sweet. Like me," she said, smirking. Jamal handed the mug back, exhaling a small laugh. "You really don't filter anything, do you?" "Nope. I used to. Tried to be smaller, quieter, easier. Got tired of pretending." He didn't respond, just looked out into the darkness. Maya tilted her head toward him. "What about you? You've been performing all weekend, you know. He frowned slightly. Performing? Yeah. You've got that CEO face. The perfect posture, the measured tone. Like you're always ready for a meeting or a press conference. But no one really knows what's underneath. Jamal was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I'm not used to being seen. She turned to look at him. You're Jamal Carter. Everyone sees you. They see the headlines, the net worth, the suits and strategies. That's not seeing. He wasn't looking at her when he said it, but there was something unguarded in his voice that hadn't been there before. I grew up with nothing, he continued. My parents worked 2 jobs each. I taught myself coding in a public library. Every step of success felt like survival, not celebration. Maya watched him quietly. I became who I needed to be to win, to keep climbing. And somewhere along the way, I stopped knowing how to just exist around people who didn't want something from me. He glanced over. And now I'm stuck in a room with someone who wants nothing, and still talks like she knows me. Maya gave a small, lopsided smile. I don't know you, but I see pieces. He studied her for a long moment. And what do you see? She leaned against the railing, thoughtful. I see someone who's smarter than he lets on, lonelier than he admits, and probably hasn't laughed until his stomach hurts in years. The silence that followed was warm, not heavy. Then Maya looked down. You know, everyone thinks I'm this walking joke. Loud. Messy. Too much. But the truth is, her voice faltered for the first time. I talk a lot because when it's quiet, I hear all the things I pretend don't bother me. Jamal didn't interrupt. I tell jokes before anyone else can. Because if I say it first, it doesn't hurt when someone else does. Still, no interruption. I guess we both perform. You for power. Me for protection. He reached out and gently took the mug from her hands again. Not because he wanted more hot chocolate, but because she looked like she needed something held. For a few moments, the only sound was the distant wind rustling the trees. You're not too much, he said softly. Maya turned to him, stunned. Maybe you're just around too little, he added, eyes meeting hers. Something shifted between them. The air thickened. Electric. Quiet. Honest. For the first time, Maya didn't make a joke. She just nodded. They stood there a while longer, side by side, without speaking. When they finally turned in for the night, neither brought up the pillow wall. Maya curled up on her side back to him. Jamal lay staring at the ceiling for a few moments, then turned toward her, just enough to hear her breathing. And somewhere in the stillness, something neither of them had felt in a long time took root. Trust. The next morning, sunlight spilled into room 314 like a warm invitation. Maya stirred first, groaning into the pillow. You ever notice how beds feel better once you're forced to share them? She mumbled sleepily. Jamal, already awake and showered, stood near the closet adjusting the cuffs of his dress shirt. I'd argue it was always a good bed, he replied. But you were too busy flailing around like a sea otter to appreciate it. She peeked up at him through a messy curtain of hair. That's your way of saying you slept well? He gave the smallest of smirks. Better than expected. She grinned and rolled onto her back. Don't look now, but I think we're getting comfortable. Dangerous territory. She hummed, eyes closing again. Keep talking like that, and I'll start thinking you're secretly charming. The wedding ceremony was held outdoors beneath a floral arch overlooking the hills. Guests were seated in neat rows of white chairs, each adorned with lavender ribbons and soft lace. Maya stood beside Jamal, looking radiant in a silver dress she borrowed from a friend last minute. Her curly hair framed her face like a halo gone rogue, and she'd swiped on just enough eyeliner to feel dangerous. Jamal, in a charcoal gray suit and tie, looked equally dangerous, but in a could-by-the-resort with one phone call kind of way. They weren't holding hands. But they also weren't not leaning just slightly into each other. Maya whispered to him during the vows, teasing about the cheesy metaphor the officiant used, something about 2 hearts becoming one Wi-Fi signal. Jamal bit back a laugh, covering his mouth with a discreet cough. People noticed. People stared. People assumed. The reception took place under a grand canopy tent lit with twinkle lights and chandeliers that looked like they belonged in a music video. The music was upbeat, the wine free-flowing, and everyone was blissfully tipsy by the second course. Maya had no intention of dancing, until the DJ said, "All couples to the floor for a slow one." She turned to Jamal. "Don't look at me like that." "I'm not. You're absolutely calculating an excuse to escape. I'm considering the fire exit behind the dessert table." She grabbed his hand. "Come on. For optics. Everyone already thinks we're sleeping together. That doesn't mean we have to perform for them. Too late. We're already the show." She dragged him onto the dance floor, positioning his hands properly, as if he were a Ken doll she was reprogramming. "There," she said. "Now try to sway without looking like you're being held hostage." "I don't sway." "Then fake it. That's what weddings are for." To Jamal's surprise, it wasn't awful. Maya smelled like something soft and citrusy. Her body fit perfectly against his. And for once, he wasn't calculating, or posturing, or thinking about the next move. They just moved. Together. Her voice, low and teasing, tickled his neck. "Admit it. You're enjoying this." He leaned in. "I'll deny it under oath." Her eyes flicked up to meet his. And in that instant, the world got quieter. The air between them changed. The laughter around them faded. There was just the music, the movement, and two people who had no business wanting each other. But did. Maya opened her mouth to say something. But she didn't get the chance. "Jamal." The voice was familiar. Polished. Icy. He froze. Maya turned, still in his arms, as a tall, elegant woman approached in a sleek satin gown the color of old money. High cheekbones. Perfect posture. Designer heels that didn't dare touch grass. "Vanessa," Jamal said stiffly. Maya's brows lifted. Oh. Vanessa smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I was invited," Jamal replied. She turned her eyes to Maya, giving her a slow, polite once-over. "And you must be the entertainment?" Maya blinked. "Wow." Straight for the jugular. Jamal stepped between them slightly. "Maya is my guest." Vanessa smiled thinly. "Of course she is. Just like I was. Until I wasn't." There it was. The not-so-subtle jab. A reminder of old wounds and history Maya hadn't known about, until now. "I didn't realize you too," Maya started, voice soft. "We were engaged," Vanessa said, as if offering a weather report. Maya's eyes flicked to Jamal. He didn't deny it. Vanessa gave a faux sweet smile. "Well, it was lovely running into you. Best of luck, you too." And with that, she disappeared into the crowd like smoke. The silence on the walk back to the room was suffocating. Maya kicked off her heels the second they walked inside and crossed her arms. "So, engaged." Jamal loosened his tie, sighing. "Years ago. She was the daughter of an investor. It wasn't about love. It was a merger. One I called off when I realized I was the only one pretending." Maya nodded, trying to keep her voice light. "And now you're slumming it with the talkative writer who can't afford room service. That's not what this is." She gave a tight smile. "It's fine. I get it. I wasn't supposed to matter. I'm just the funny girl with the loud voice and a messy suitcase." "Maya, I let myself think there was something real here," she said, backing up. "But you didn't even tell me about her. Which tells me exactly what role I play in your life." He stepped toward her. "You matter more than you think." "No," she said, tears threatening. "I matter less than she did. And you didn't even love her." He had no answer. And that silence was all the answer she needed. Maya grabbed her sweater and walked out. And for the first time in years, Jamal Carter didn't have a plan. He just stood there, alone, watching the door that had just closed. It was past midnight. The wedding had ended hours ago. The once lively resort was quiet now, cloaked in shadows and the soft hum of crickets. Room 314 sat in silence too, except it wasn't full. Maya wasn't there. Jamal stood near the window, shirt untucked, tie undone, watching the road that curved down into the hills. He hadn't moved since she left. Every part of him wanted to chase her. But what would he say? He'd built a career on strategic words, boardroom brilliance, investor confidence. But none of that helped when a woman you were starting to fall for walked away believing she didn't mean anything. And the worst part, he let her believe it. Maya sat alone in the quiet lounge just past the reception desk. Her sweater was wrapped around her shoulders like armor, her suitcase parked next to her like a loyal pet. She stared blankly at the unlit fireplace, face streaked with quiet tears that she hadn't even bothered to wipe away. Her eyes were red. Her laugh, always ready, was nowhere to be found. She had told herself not to fall. Not this time. Not for someone like him. A man who lived behind walls of control and cold elegance. A man who probably had a vault of emotional unavailability hidden behind every immaculate shirt and calculated pause. But he held her at night. He told her she wasn't too much. And now she felt like not enough. Leaving early? The voice startled her. It was Jason, the groom, still in his tux, minus the tie. His smile was warm, if a little tired. Maya shrugged. Just thought I'd cut my losses and catch a ride before traffic. At 1 a.m? She smirked bitterly. The best escapes are done under cover of darkness. Jason sat beside her. He's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you, you know. She didn't respond. I've known Jamal for over a decade, Jason continued. I've watched him negotiate billion-dollar deals without blinking. I've watched women practically campaign to date him. And he never looks back when people walk out of his life. Maya's fingers curled around the strap of her bag. But tonight, Jason added, he hasn't stopped looking at the door. Her voice was small. Then why didn't he follow me? Maybe because, for the first time, he's afraid the truth might not be enough. She turned her head slowly. What truth? Jason stood. Ask him. And then he left her there, with her suitcase and her storm of feelings, staring at the elevator that led back to room 314. Jamal was still by the window when he heard the quiet knock. He didn't move for a second. Then he opened the door, and there she was. Hair windswept. Eyes raw. Heart visibly torn. I was really ready to leave, she said softly. I wouldn't have stopped you, he said, voice low. Maya's mouth twisted. That's not comforting. He stepped aside and she walked in, setting her suitcase down but not sitting. I shouldn't have left the way I did, she admitted. I shouldn't have let you, he replied. They stared at each other. Two people standing on the edge of something terrifying. I didn't tell you about Vanessa, Jamal began, because I didn't want you to think I was still carrying that story around. I left that chapter a long time ago. She made me feel like I didn't belong beside you, Maya whispered. She wanted to. I let her. Jamal walked toward her, slow, deliberate, vulnerable. You've turned my world inside out in 3 days, he said. You don't care about who I know or how much I make. You challenge me. You make me laugh. You make me feel, in ways I haven't let myself feel in a long, long time. She looked up at him. Then why didn't you say it? Because I was terrified, he admitted. Of being enough. Of not being enough. Of letting someone in and losing them. Maya's lip trembled. So we were both scared. He nodded. And I don't want to be any more. For a second, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, Maya stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating off his chest. I don't want to be either, she whispered. Jamal reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. His voice dropped to a whisper. Stay. I was hoping you'd ask. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like something precious and breakable and long lost. She melted into him, burying her face in his chest, finally letting go of the weight she'd carried. And for the first time all weekend, neither of them needed the bed divider. The sun rose with quiet grace over Willow Crest Resort, casting golden streaks across the now silent grounds. Birds chirped lazily from the trees. Guests wandered out of their rooms in robes and slippers, sipping coffee and reliving fragments of the night before. But in room 314, the world was still. Maya woke slowly, tucked beneath the sheets, her cheek pressed against Jamal's bare shoulder. His arm was wrapped around her like it had always belonged there. For a moment, she didn't move. Just listened to the steady rise and fall of his breath, the quiet hum of life happening outside the room, and the soft, surreal realization. They hadn't just survived the weekend. They'd unraveled, rebuilt, and somehow found each other in the wreckage. Jamal stirred. "You're awake." "I wasn't sure if it was real," she whispered. He turned to face her, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "It is." A beat passed. "Are you still afraid?" she asked. His answer came without hesitation. "Only of losing this." She smiled, small and true. "Me too." Later that morning, bags were packed, bills settled, and guests started to disappear in rented cars and SUVs. The wedding was over, the magic folded up like table linens. Jamal and Maya stood side by side at the checkout desk, waiting for the valet to bring the car. Jason and his new bride waved from across the lobby, beaming. "You two better send us a wedding invite next." Maya laughed. Jamal offered a rare smile. The receptionist handed them their receipt and gave them a knowing look. "You two really made use of that last room, huh?" Maya looked at Jamal. He looked at her. And in unison, they both said, "Best mistake we ever made." The car ride home was quieter than the trip there, but in the best way. No tension, no friction, just shared playlists, open windows, and the occasional brush of fingers across the center console. At a red light, Maya glanced over. "So, what happens now?" Jamal reached for her hand and laced his fingers through hers. "We figure it out, room by room, day by day." She leaned her head against the window and smiled. Not bad for a guy who used to make pillow walls. He smirked. "That guy's gone. I'm more of a shared blanket kind of man now." "Oh wow," she said. "Emotional growth and warmth. You're evolving. You bring it out in me." And just like that, the road stretched ahead, wide, winding, uncertain, and theirs. A few months later, a wedding invitation arrives in the mail. This time, it's not for Jason and Sarah. It's for someone else. Someone unexpected. On the return address is a sticker that reads, L&M, one room, one chance, one wild love story. Inside, it says, "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Maya Brooks and Jamal Carter. Dress code, comfy shoes, loud laughter, and dancing required. Venue, Willow Crest Resort. Room 314 reserved, for old time's sake. Because sometimes love doesn't knock. Sometimes it barges in, steals your bed, eats your snacks, and turns your whole life upside down. In the best possible way." We have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.